Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Lucian supplementary guide, and today we're going to be taking a look at the basically kind of burst build of Lucian without IE. Now technically every Lucian build is a burst build because Lucian is a burst based champion, so whatever your build is kind of the burst build, but in this case we're not going for BT, we're not going for IE, we're going for the double energized items as well as Charge Blade. Now if you take a look at the top couple players, you will see that the second player has basically this build. Then you have the top player basically with the Storm Razor into Charge Blade and then IE, which is of course another build you can go for. Now, of course, in this build, I like to go for BT instead of Storm Razor, but of course, Storm Razor and BT are kind of interchangeable depending on what your preference is as well as what the enemy team is, etc. Right? So today we're going to take a look at this one, all no IE, all like these kind of nice utility items, right? So let's talk about it. So first off, we have the Gluttonous Grease, right? Before the AD and the Omnivamp as usual. Then you start off with Storm Razor, first item. You get the early game burst, most importantly, as well as a little bit of AD, attack speed, and of course your crit. Then you get Magnetic Blaster for the bonus range, as well as the AoE, good for wave clear, just good for getting assists, things like that. Also, of course, stacking together with the Storm Razor to proc their passives, giving you poke as well. And then for Charge Blade, one of Lucian's best items, because obviously whenever you use ability, you want to auto in between, and this of course gives you extra damage, extra magic damage on your autos, which will allow you of course to crit as well. And then of course we have more reminder for the armor pen as well as the Grievous Wounds. Now last item, completely flexible. Here you could go for something like Black Cleaver for more health and armor shred if you're against a tanky team. GA for the revive, Maw against a heavy magic damage team. And technically you could even overcap on crit if you want for an IE or a BT. And then of course Triforce is a really solid option as well, similar to Black Cleaver. For the runes, of course, you want to go for Empowerment / PTA 100% of the time. It's basically Lucian's best rune, no two ways about it. It gives you the most damage. Brutal, of course, standard ADC loadout, Giant Slayer against the tanks, and Bloodline here, because Lucian doesn't care too much about attack speed. He already has three attack speed items anyway. And then here we have Bone Plating for the defensive capabilities. For the spells, you're going to go for Flash. And of course, with Lucian, you can go for Barrier, Exhaust, or Cleanse depending on your needs and how much CC / assassins or damage there is on the enemy team. But with all that said, let's hop straight into the gameplay. Okay, so now let's get into the gameplay itself. So we do have a couple of discussion topics, mostly surrounding the build itself. But the first thing I want to kind of say is about the support, right? So Lucian, there are many ways to play Lucian with a support, or many supports you can play with Lucian, right? He does okay with some enchanters and most engagers, but basically Lucian I think is a little bit of a strange champion. So ever since his rework, of course, you do get extra damage on your autos when you're buffed by an enchanter or when CC lands near you. So that kind of implies that both enchanters and engagers both kind of work. But in reality, I personally think Lucian is better with engagers compared to an enchanter. As in, when I say enchanter, I'm talking about Yumi's, Lulu's, champions like these, right? Or Janna's, for example. I think that you do better when it comes to playing with engagers. As here we get into an insane level 1 fight, and we do end up getting the kill onto the Ezreal, and then having to flash forward, finish the kill onto Morgana, giving us a very good start to the game. And the reason why I think it's better to play with engagers is because they can engage for Lucian, and then Lucian can aggressively dash in, unload his whole combo, and burst someone down, right? Whereas with enchanters, you have to sort of do that on your own, and then it's the enchanter's job to then keep you alive and buff you up. So I think it's a little bit more difficult to play with enchanter. However, an enchanter that's very good for Lucian to play with is Nami, and the reason why that's the case is Nami's buff on you, which is of course the E, the bubbles that go around you that enhance your auto attack damage, increases your burst damage a lot. So especially with enemies who are not familiar with playing against this combo, you can just dash on top of them and then burst them down very, very easily compared to an engager or another enchanter. So of course Nami also has CC with her bubble as well as her wave, and also very good poke on her W, and very aggressive in the early game as well. So kind of completely suits Lucian. However, in my opinion, the best support for Lucian, but the best support for Lucian, period, is actually Milio. Now, this is actually very strange, considering how I always say that, Yumi and Lulu are not very ideal for Lucian. And the reason why Milio is the best support for Lucian is because of Milio's W. So Melio's W is the one where he attaches like this tether to you and it gives you bonus range, which is this one, as you guys can see here. So here you can see I'm dashing it onto the Ezreal as well as the Morgana, and you can see here we instantly one-shot the Ezreal to basically 1 HP, which allowed Melio to auto him and finish off the kill. And now why is this good, right? So it's good for 2 reasons, right? The first reason is Lucian is the lowest range ADC in the game, tied with Samira, of course, if you don't count Neela, who is a melee champion. So he has the lowest range of all ranged AD carries, right? So Lucian is basically like, not Lucian, but champions in general are balanced around their ranges, right? So because ADCs generally have larger ranges, or for example, Caitlyn has a large range, the largest base range, so she does a little bit less damage than another ADC, for example, because she has a lot of range. So she can reach you and you can't, which is quote-unquote unfair, right? So she does less damage because she has more range, something like that. Whereas, for example, a certain champion, let's say Jax, right? Jax is melee, right? He can't reach you. So if he actually manages to reach you, he's going to do a lot of damage, because it's only fair that if he takes so much effort to reach you in melee range that he does damage to you. So that's kind of how it works. So the thing about Melio is he flips this kind of concept, right? So if he buffs someone like a Lucian or a Kalista who's not meant to have more range, they benefit greatly from the extra range, because of course Lucian is meant to have very low range, whereas with the Melio buff, he now has, I wouldn't say high, but he has decent range. And this, of course, then means he can, reach people he isn't meant to reach. Now, that's just number 1. But part 2 of why Melio is so good with Lucian is, on the same ability W, he heals you every second, right? So remember how Lucian gets 2 stacks of his passive whenever someone heals or shields him? Well, every tick of that healing gives you 2 stacks of the passive. So basically, while that string is attached to you, while the tether is attached to you like here, I'm basically gaining the stacks of damage every 2 seconds. So you can see here, this leads to you doing a lot of damage. So if you don't even use your abilities, you simply get into an auto attack fight with somebody, with the enemy bot lane, and you just only auto attack them without using spells, your autos are gonna do a ton of damage. Of course, you never want to do that because you want to use your spell damage as well as using your double auto to proc it more quickly. But you guys get the point. You see here, every tick of this 11, 11, 11, 11 is actually giving me, extra damage from my passive. So I think I spent like about 5 minutes talking about Lucian supports and why Melio is so good with Lucian. But we also want to discuss the build, right? Now, I'm not talking too much about the gameplay, but I think these are kind of more important concepts to understand. Like with the gameplay with Melio, it's really straightforward, right? I kind of explain why Melio is good and why we're able to just dash forward into the enemy's faces and one-shot them. It's really because of the synergy between Lucian and Melio. So another thing I want you guys to understand is the build. So why are we going for this build, right? So, well, there's really like 2 things to discuss. The first thing is, Lucian is of course a ADC who does physical damage, right? But you will notice with certain items, which I like to call them like more utility items instead of pure damage, right? So I think like IE, for example, is a pure damage item, right? It gives you increased crit damage, it gives you a lot of AD, and Bloodthirster to a certain extent is sort of in between, where it gives you healing, but it gives you a lot of AD as well. But I think items like Stormrazor, like Charge Blade, or like Blaster are more utility focused, because they generally give a good passive but not very good stats, right? So, for example, with Stormrazor, you get that burst damage every once in a while, you get the slow on the enemy, you get the speed up, so a lot of utility with the movement speed difference as well as the burst damage. Same with Blaster. Blaster gives you the additional range, which of course is a lot of utility, gives you a lot of extra poke, gives you the wave clear, a lot of like things your ADC shouldn't have, right? Extra range, extra wave clear are things you normally wouldn't have, right? Like whereas with IE, you're not getting any additional benefit aside from just pure damage, right? Same with Charge Blade. Charge Blade gives you, yes, pure damage, but it also gives you a magic damage profile, which of course when you crit, you do magic damage. So you are a physical damage champion, but you can do magic damage using Magnetic Blaster as well as Charge Blade. So the first real big benefit of using this build is of course just having more burst in the sense of Charge Blade and Stormrazor plus Blaster all proccing at the same time is going to do a large amount of front-loaded damage. Whereas with, for example, a build like BT and IE, your damage profile is kind of not really front-loaded, but more so evenly spread out throughout your combo. Whereas with this build, it's all kind of front-loaded, very hard for the enemy to react. That's one of the benefits. Of course, the other, as I mentioned just now, being the extra, magic damage that you actually get from this build. So even if the enemy team is kind of like tanky and stuff, or they're building a lot of armor, which in this case this team is not. This team is like a full squishy team, right? Which is great for this build because you can one shot them. But if say there was like a Garen top lane who's stacking tank items, let's say he's gone for Randuin's, he's gone for, I don't know, Thornmail or whatnot, right? It would still matter, of course, but it would be a lot better because here you have 2 magic damage items which allow you to deal magic damage, which of course his armor does not work against. So there's another big benefit of the build. So I think I've covered kind of the build quite a bit, but we haven't really talked too much about the gameplay. So last point on the build is IE versus utility items. So now you might be thinking, so if the utility items give me all these quote-unquote good benefits, and IE just gives me pro damage, so when do I go for which one, or why do you go for this one and not that one, kind of thing? Well, again, it's back to the usual factors of number 1, personal preference, and number 2, the match circumstance, and number 3, simply just what's good when, right? Actually, that's kind of repeating the same point, so maybe just those 2 points, right? Personal preference number 1, and number 2 is kind of the situation, right? So definitely I think there will be situations where having front-loaded burst damage is going to be better, like in these cases, for example, where the enemy team is full squishy, and I think just front-loaded burst damage is just way better. Whereas for a certain other enemy team, let's say they have 2 frontline champions, like let's say they have a Xin Zhao, and let's say they have a Mundo, for example, I think having the Bloodthirster build would be way better because it would take quite a bit of time to shred through their frontline. And as a result, having the sustain from the Bloodthirster would be very good to kind of just heal up as you're trying to work your way through the front line. Whereas with this build, you have 0 sustain aside from the Gluttonous Greaves. So you don't really have a lot of healing, as here we're just cutting off the escape of the Ezreal, just basically autoing him down, like you see here. So really, I think it's kind of really, for me personally, it's dependent on the enemy team and what the situation is. Right, but for in general, it's a lot of personal preference as well. Like some people love bursting, some people just love sustain. It's all about personal preference and the match, right? So, yep. So now let's talk a little bit more about the gameplay. Here you can see Fizz is dashing in on me, but obviously you can see that he doesn't really do very much to me. I flash forward, simply just murder him. Now Graves is here. Yeah, I don't know what he thinks he's gonna do to me, but he now is flashing away. Now here is Ezreal and Morgana also collapsing. So here at this point, we're kind of in the middle of everybody, which is not very good, right? Because if they collapse on us, we would be in trouble. So here we're basically just trying to kill somebody, anybody at this point. Now I'm dashing forward, trying to kill somebody. Finally, we get the kill on Ezreal. We get rooted by the Morgana eventually. And here Graves, for some reason, just randomly runs into us. By the way, if you take a look at my team, I'm 6-0-5, right? Like, with, I believe, the most goal in the game. Yep, we do have the most goal in the game. Followed very closely behind my Ryze, who somehow was left unbanned. And he's 9-1 as well. So he's carrying, I'm carrying, and overall, there is currently like a 13k goal difference between the 2 teams. So while I was talking about the build and the supports and stuff, we being me and my team have gotten a ton of kills, and we are way in the lead. At this point, it's sort of a situation where the lead is almost insurmountable for the enemy team. Like, they're having a rough go at it, trying to really do anything to us and our team, because we are really far ahead. And it's come to the point where you can see Fizz is trying to assassinate me, is not really even close to doing it. And we're just golden, right? So here we have our triple burst item already, combo of course, the Storm Razor, Magnetic Blaster, and the Charge Blade. So on the next example, when we go near someone, you can just see how much burst damage we do to them. And yeah. So of course, in this case, a lot of your burst damage actually comes from the passives of your abilities. Which is what really makes this build kind of more unique, which is not really, it's not a stat-based build, it's more of like, all the passives of all of the items that you have. So here, this is very dangerous, right? So we're only doing this because we're very far ahead. You can see here Fizz is trying to chase, but nothing is really happening. He ults me, but yeah, really what's gonna happen here? Yeah, here we're chasing down the kill goes down, she doesn't have ult, Fizz going in again. You can see that he's completely ineffective against us. Now Melio is now buffing us back up, which gives us the extra damage, as well as, of course, the healing. Now Graves is coming in from behind. Yeah, I don't know why he's running at us, but obviously you can see we're so fed, and we also are playing the Lucian Melio combo. Now, Melio, as I mentioned just now, is Lucian's best support in my opinion, and also I think my favorite champion to play Lucian with. Love it when I play Lucian Milio. We're just, you know, taking over the game. I mean, it's not just us, right? Like, we have Rise, right? And Rise is such a strong champion that yeah, you know, the game is kind of over for the enemy team. Yeah, we just one shot the Fizz. You know, we're taking the enemy towers. Baron hasn't even spawned on the map yet. Enemy team is, in my opinion, overextending. Like, walking a little bit out of the tower is overextending, because when you have an enemy champion that can one shot you like Lucian here, or even like Rise, right? You can't even step out of your tower, right? You step out of your tower a little bit, you're gonna get one shot. I mean, there I didn't manage to complete the one shot, but you guys get the general idea. We almost basically just one-shot them. Here we get 2 inhibs already without having the Baron, by the way. And I think this is a little bit of overstay here. I don't think we should be overstaying this much. Gnar is pushing in the last wave though, so maybe we can try to go for that. But unfortunately, my team is super uncoordinated in the sense that when Gnar pushes in the wave, we all back off, which means that it's really difficult to push that last tower. Because like me and Milio as well as Nunu were thinking, let's just go get Baron and then we end the game, right? But Rise and Gnar is like, let's end the game right now. Like, we don't even need Baron. But I think Baron is just a safe play. There's no reason not to take Baron, so we're just gonna go get Baron, and we just need our teammates not to die, right? In fact, Rise is just solo killing like everybody, right? He's like 1v however many people there are there, and he's just killing all of them. So he's not having any trouble whatsoever. Now we have the Baron. I can honestly back to complete my mole reminder now if I'm not mistaken, but it's at the point where I do want to back, which is exactly what we're gonna do. So here, honestly, we kind of trolling. Like here, like we basically hung Nunu out to dry, because here, honestly, the better player or the best play here would just be to not back, just stick around and just end the game together with Nunu and Rise, right? But we basically decide to troll. I mean, honestly, I did this on purpose, just to have a little bit of fun. I just decided to recall and get my mole reminder. Although what we should have done is just stayed there and ended the game. So yeah, that could be a throw if we end up losing the game. But you can see here, Rise basically takes everybody out before we even get here. And now we're fountain farming at this point. We're trying to ult down the Ezreal on the fountain. We get him, and the game ends from the Baron minions. So yeah, very one-sided affair, but hopefully you guys can see how this build kind of works and why we build it and such. So we'll leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.